lot of people tend to think the C2 as the ultimate goal of language learning, but the truth is that speaking a foreign language at a C2 level and speaking like a native speaker are two different things. Hi, my name is Luca from lucalamparella.com, and today I'm going to show you the difference between speaking at a C2 level and speaking like a native speaker. Have you ever caught yourself using expressions such as he speaks like a native speaker, he sounds like a native speaker? But the reality is that speaking and native speakers don't go well together in one sense. Native speaker is about identity, is not just about the knowledge, it's not just about the skills. A native speaker is a native speaker, and if you're a foreigner, if you're a non-native speaker, well, you're not a native speaker. That's an important point to take because a lot of people strive for speaking like a native speaker, sounding like a native speaker, but the reality is that this is just a mere emulation. Just to give an example, let's take a Danish professor or a French professor who has been living in the US for a long time and speaks English really well. So well, in fact, that he gives lectures at university and he is much appreciated by his students. Well, that Danish professor speaks English, has acquired native-like skills, so he can speak at a native-like level, he can express himself very well, but he's not a native speaker. On the other hand, let's take a peasant, a person who is a native speaker, still, he was born in the United States, but has no formal education. Who do you think speaks English better among the two? Obviously, the peasant probably speaks English worse. He cannot express himself as eloquently and as elegantly as the professor, but the reality is that he is still the native speaker in this show. So, who speaks English better, the Danish professor or the American peasant? Okay. On the one hand, the Danish professor can express himself very eloquently, can speak really well, can write essays. The peasant, though, although he cannot do all these things, still has an advantage, and the advantage is that he was born in the United States. So he has incorporated all the customs, ways of saying, ways of being, facial features, gestures, experiences that the Danish professor probably didn't have, because he did acquire knowledge, he did acquire the skill of expressing himself elegantly and eloquently, but he was not born there, he did not have the same experiences. So you can learn to speak almost like a native, but bear in mind that you will never be a native speaker. You can emulate the status of a native speaker without being one. The people who get very close to speaking and being native speakers are normally the people who live 30 to 40 years in a country, and their kids were born in that country, so they've seen the entire thing, maybe from an external perspective. They didn't go to the kindergarten, but they've seen their kids go to kindergarten and interact with other kids and interact with other adults, and they've seen adults themselves interacting with kids, going to school, going to high school, etc. Those get close to speaking and being native speakers, but again, they will never be native speakers because they were not born in that country. So if there is one thing for which people can say or can think that you are a native speaker, is accent. If you speak a given language very, very well to the point where people cannot tell that you're a foreigner, well, that means that you have reached a native-like pronunciation. And if you want to reach native-like pronunciation in a given language, you have to take into account other things. People normally tend to think, okay, well, what I have to do is focus on the text, focus on sounds, replicate sounds, repeat, etc. True, but I think that one of the most important factors that is often neglected is that you have to take everything into account, the entire communication tool that every single native speaker has. And by communication tools, I mean my hands, co-speed gestures, my face, how I'm communicating with my face, my eyes, my body, everything, the whole thing.